Susan, progress is possible. We're moving. Good afternoon, everyone. I said from the beginning of my campaign, Madam Speaker, that the campaign for president throughout, and you would call me and tell me, keep it up, was about bringing people together, about uniting the country. We need to unite as one. Today, I can say that because of all of you, many of you sitting right in front of me, you've taken that first step. It's an important step. I'd like to thank the Congress and the members who are here today, Democrats and Republicans, who came together to get the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act on my desk. Well, on a desk I'm about to sign. But I want to thank the Majority Leader Schumer. I want to thank Speaker Pelosi for your leadership. One people, one nation, one America. And that was the thing I was most often criticized about, saying, how can you unite the country? We must unite the country. I said it in my kickoff speech in Philadelphia. I said it again when I spoke at Gettysburg, and I emphasized it in my inaugural address. A lot of people, press to elected officials, were somewhat skeptical of it could be done. It's just beginning, but I'm confident we can do this and so much more. And I believe with every fiber of my being that there are simple core values and beliefs that should bring us together as Americans. One of them is standing together against hate, against racism, the ugly poison that has long haunted and plagued our nation.
Word equity. We've consulted linguists, we've dusted off moldering reference books, we've scoured the four corners of God's own internet, all in an effort to figure out what equity is. We've done this not for pleasure, we have hobbies, but because we feel it's our duty as a news program. Equity is now the organizing principle of the United States of America. On the very day he was inaugurated, Joe Biden signed Executive Order 13985. That order makes equity mandatory across the federal government in all the agencies. And yet, strangely, neither Joe Biden nor anyone else in the administration has ever defined the word. So what is equity? Well, tonight, finally, we know what it is. Equity, it turns out, is racism. It's as simple as that. Equity is racism. And to be clear, we don't mean racism in the sense that ice cream and Shakespeare and math are all now supposedly racist, or that Dr. Seuss is now considered an exalted cyclops in the Ku Klux Klan. We're not talking about the Ilhan Omar Atlantic magazine definition of racism, which, by the way, isn't actually language, but just another blunt political weapon. No, we mean racism in the literal sense, in the way that Martin Luther King defined the term, which is the act of hurting some people and helping others purely on the basis of their respective races. Bigotry, in other words, prejudice, hatred. That's what equity is. We know this thanks to Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago. Earlier today, Lightfoot released a two-page manifesto defining equity. Quote, equity and inclusion are the North Stars of this administration, Lightfoot explained. Then she got specific about it. Quote, on the occasion of the 2-year anniversary of my inauguration as mayor of this great city, I will be exclusively providing one-on-one interviews with journalists of color. So in the name of equity, Lori Lightfoot is refusing to grant interviews to white people. Lightfoot took pains to explain she doesn't mean that personally. In fact, she conceded that some of the white reporters who cover City Hall in Chicago are talented and hardworking. But unfortunately, they are, Lightfoot said, quote, white nonetheless. So there it is, as plainly as anyone has ever said it out loud. White people are disqualified because they are white, not because of anything they have done or said or think. Lori Lightfoot doesn't care about that. She says so. Lightfoot is not interested in what these white people might be like as individuals, as people. She doesn't even care what kind of white they are. Their ancestors could be from Italy or Luxembourg or Finland or Spain. They could be members of the British royal family. They could be penniless Romanian immigrants living in a box on the sidewalk on Michigan Avenue. Rich or poor, it doesn't matter to Lori Lightfoot. To Lori Lightfoot, all that matters is the fact they're white, because all white people are the same. They are entirely defined by the color of their skin. You can see how this makes life a little easier for Lori Lightfoot. She knows who to hate just by looking at them. If someday the Chicago police round up the entire population of the city, Lori Lightfoot would have no trouble pulling the right ones out of line for punishment. By the way, in case you're wondering, yes, that was a Nazi reference. It was deserved. Lori Lightfoot is a monster. Any society that allows politicians to talk like this has a very ugly future ahead. Very ugly. But of course, no one said much at all about what Lori Lightfoot said in her manifesto. Even Chicago reporters, some of whom could no longer do their jobs purely because of how they were born, offered only tepid complaints. Listen to this person from NBC.
Another reporter called and said, "Hey, I'm hearing they're only talking to black or brown journalists." And I said, "What? It just didn't even sound real." And so I reached out to the communications director, Kate Lefergy, and she texted me back and said, "Yeah, that's true." She said, "No, white reporters have been in the room for the majority of the year, and it's time to hear from other people."
What? Can this be real? What you just heard was confusion, but not outrage. And yet there's nothing confusing about who Lori Lightfoot is. Lori Lightfoot is a dangerous bigot. Lori Lightfoot is hurting other people because of their race. That's the crime, but of course it's the one thing nobody wants to say out loud. Here's the response from a reporter at the Chicago Tribune. Quote, "I'm a Latino reporter whose interview request was granted for today. However, I asked the mayor's office to lift its condition on others, and when they said no, we respectfully canceled. Politicians don't get to choose who covers them." End quote. Talk about missing the point completely. And by the way, of course politicians can choose who they talk to. All of us have that right, thank God. What politicians cannot do under any circumstances is an attack an entire group of citizens on the basis of their skin color. Again, to restate the obvious, that is racism. It is immoral. It is also illegal under countless state and federal laws. We are not supposed to allow behavior like that from our government. We are all equal in the eyes of the law. We are all citizens. We've got an entire granite monument on the National Mall in Washington promising that we will never behave that way again. We will never allow it. But because we've embraced equity, we're not simply allowing it, we are encouraging it. Meanwhile, how's Chicago? The city of Chicago under Lori Lightfoot is crumbling. Murders last year jumped to 50%, hundreds more dead, many of them young people, children, most of them black. Is that social justice? No, it's not. It's no one's definition of social justice. Not surprisingly, Lori Lightfoot doesn't want to talk about it. There are 50 members of the city council in Chicago. They're called aldermen. One of them, an alderman called Raymond Lopez, has repeatedly pressed Lori Lightfoot to explain what she's doing to the city. You should know that Raymond Lopez is not a right-winger. He's a Democrat. He represents the 15th Ward, which is overwhelmingly non-white. In some places, it's impoverished. But Raymond Lopez cares a lot about his constituents. So in January, he raised an obvious point with the mayor. Maybe crime is shooting up in Chicago because Chicago, as a sanctuary city, is not enforcing federal law. How did Lori Lightfoot respond to this? She called him a racist.
Being an immigrant or a refugee is not a crime. Alderman Napolitano and Alderman Ray Lopez. I just have to say, shame on you. Spirited debate, which is at the heart of our democracy, is not the same as using racist tropes and xenophobic rhetoric to promote yourself on the backs of others and demonize them.
Calling for an elected official to follow federal law is now a racist trope.
Chicago, what is up with this? The mayor, Lori Lightfoot, put out a statement. Here she says, "I've been struck since my first day on the campaign trail back in 2018 by the overwhelming whiteness and maleness of Chicago media outlets, editorial boards, the political press corps, and yes, the City Hall press corps specifically." She's not going to do interviews with anyone unless you're a minority, Geraldo. What the
I
hell
think
is that?
I think this is very weird, a weird and racist policy declaring she'll only grant these one-on-one interviews to black or brown reporters. I am a proud person of color, but some of my best friends are white, including my wife. Therefore, in solidarity with my white brethren, I will not ask this mayor for any interviews. If I did ask her for an interview, I'd ask her about the over 3,000 people shot last year in her city. I'd ask her about this past weekend where 48 were shot, 5 of them fatally. I think she has a whole lot more on her plate than the race of the reporter asking her the tough question, Bill.
Leo, could you imagine if a white mayor in America said anything even close to this? I mean, how would you respond to that?
I'll tell you exactly. If a white mayor said the same thing, you would have CNN and MSNBC and Black Lives Matter protesting and burning down this country. In other words, I can go interview this lady, which I would never do, but Bill Hemmer cannot. Bill Hemmer with more experience, but because of Bill Hemmer's skin color, let me be very clear. It's not weird. She's a racist. She is a racist. Let's be clear. Black woman, mayor, a racist because she won't let Bill Hemmer do an interview, but she'll let Leo Terrell. Never would I do this. As a civil rights attorney, I find this repugnant.
Yeah, we're losing our minds, guys. Thank you, Leo. Thank you, Geraldo. Nice to see you both. Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Cuomo brothers' Q-tip interview was in poor journalistic taste. Wait until you hear this one. A new report says top anchor Chris Cuomo took part in strategy conference calls with his governor brother on how to respond to sexual harassment allegations. CNN giving us a statement saying that Chris Cuomo has stopped covering his brother on air and added, quote, "It was inappropriate to engage in conversations that included members of the governor's staff," which Chris acknowledges. He will not participate in such conversations going forward. Jesse, what do you think of that?
I think they have 3 problems. One, they should never have tagged Cuomo as a journalist at CNN. He's not a journalist. He's an opinion guy. And if you tag someone as a journalist, then yeah, they have to abide by very strict journalistic guidelines. If you're an opinion guy, you could maybe tell a politician, hey, watch out for the fake news. It's a different dynamic. The second thing is I completely understand helping your brother out. He's your brother. You're going to help him out. But now the stench of Cuomo the elder has gotten on Cuomo the younger, and that stench is now wafting down the hallways at CNN, and that is also the problem. The third problem is staffers at CNN are going to hate this, especially female staffers, and that's an internal problem that they're going to have to deal with. I did find it ironic that Cuomo on his show has mocked the idea of cancel culture, yet advised his older brother to use cancel culture as an excuse to make his problems go away. He does seem like a golden boy over there at CNN. I looked up. I don't know. He was in 29th place on Tuesday. No one's watching his show. For some reason, he's protected over there. Maybe he's just a really nice guy.
29th, but who's counting? Kennedy, you got to have a take on this one.
I think they're both meatheads, and I think it's reprehensible, and they obviously skipped the lesson in ethics. They should be ashamed of themselves. The reporter who asked...
This is a Fox News alert. Prince William responding to a bombshell case of media malpractice involving his mother, Princess Diana. An investigation has found that BBC reporter Martin Bashir used, quote, deceitful tactics in order to secure a landmark tell-all interview with Princess Diana back in 1995. Benjamin Hall is standing by in London with all the details. Benjamin.
Jesse, good afternoon. Yes, you'll remember this interview from 1995. It was groundbreaking. The first time Princess Diana had spoken publicly about the breakdown of her marriage to Prince Charles, about his adultery with Camilla Parker Bowles. In fact, she said in the interview, there were 3 of us in this relationship. It just didn't work. She spoke about her rampant bulimia, and many people feel that this interview led to events that led to her death a couple of years later. Well, what has now emerged is that she gave that interview after being shown forged bank documents, which made it look as if members of the royal household were being paid to spy on her. Prince William released this statement just in the last few minutes, saying, "It is my view that the deceitful way the interview was obtained substantially influenced what my mother said. The interview was a major contribution to making my parents' relationship worse and has since hurt countless others. It brings indescribable sadness to know that the BBC's failures contributed significantly to her fear, paranoia, and isolation that I remember from those final years with her. It was always thought strange that Princess Diana chose Martin Bashir, a relatively young, unknown journalist, to do this interview. It's now clear she did so because he duped her and had asked the BBC graphics team to draw up these fake documents to convince her. Some have compared that 1995 Diana interview to the one Prince Harry recently gave to Oprah. They both talked about how hard they found royal life and how it affected their mental health. But an incredibly open, personal letter from Prince William in the last few moments. He has often said that he felt the media hounded his mother. Well, this letter goes a little bit further, and it said, had she known about the deceit at the time, things may have turned out very differently. Jesse?
Thanks, Ben. Hang tight. We want to ask you a few questions. Dana Perino, go right ahead.
Well, Jesse, I know you are an expert on this case, so I'm glad you tossed it to me. Just kidding. I do have some questions, Benjamin. First of all, why in the world would Diana's team, the PR team, I'm sure she's not making these decisions on her own, have asked for bank records? Why? How does that happen?
Well, first of all, her team was actually quite diminished at the time. The royal family, by all accounts, had rather cut her off, and she was left with quite a small team, her brother being the main one. And this journalist, Martin Bashir, approached the brother saying, I've come across these documents which show that members of your household and of Princess Diana's household have been accepting money totaling about £10,000, about $15,000, to give information on her life to both the tabloids as well as to the security services. And it was that piece of information that encouraged Diana to go with Martin Bashir. It was widely reported that she was wanting to give an interview anyway, but certainly not to this young Bashir. And certainly the interview would not have been, many people think, as groundbreaking, as such a big, open, honest interview as she gave. But she was very angry with the reports that Martin Bashir brought to her.
So President Trump's been out of office for some time now. He's been laying pretty low, but he's still getting attacked all the time. And now we're hearing the Southern District of New York is pressing criminal charges. They're moving forward with criminal investigation of the former president. Now, when I spoke with Mark Vargas here in studio about this very topic, he said that this was going to happen if President Trump was not re-elected, and we're watching it happen in real time. Well, now the president, the former president, is reacting, sending a scorching message after being attacked with criminal charges. Before I get into that, if you're new here, hit the red button down below to subscribe, then tap that notification bell when you do. And always remember, you can access Next News Network's ad-free, uncensored bonus content and exclusive interviews at nextnewsnetwork.com. This is some big news, friends. It comes to us from the populist press. They report that the former President Trump lashed out at state and local prosecutors in New York after they announced that the two offices were conducting a joint criminal investigation into his company. The office of the New York Attorney General Letitia James issued a statement that the ongoing civil probe of the Trump organization has been upgraded to a criminal capacity. This comes as a major escalation that could complicate the possibility of a 2024 White House run by Trump. Of course, that is the ultimate goal. They want to get him bogged down in continuing just ridiculous investigations and attacks so that they can mire him down, and so he can't run for 2024. That's the end game here. In a lengthy statement airing a list of grievances against Democrats in both D.C. and New York, President Trump dismissed the criminal probe as a politically motivated effort to attack him. The statement reads in part, "I have built a great company, employed thousands of people, and all I do is get unfairly attacked and abused by a corrupt political system." Now, Donald Trump Jr., obviously the president's son, released a video reacting to the new investigation, and he read the president's statements and had some tremendous insight. Watch.
And this is about the Attorney General nonsense in New York, that they're now investigating the Trump organization criminally, in this 5-year plus never-ending witch hunt. So, statement from my father, the 45th President of the United States. Hang on, it's a good one. I have just learned through leaks in the mainstream media that after being under investigation from the time I came down the escalator 5.5 years ago, including the fake Russia hoax, the 2-year, $48 million no collusion Mueller witch hunt, impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, and others, that the Democrat New York Attorney General has informed my organization that their investigation is no longer just a civil matter, but also potentially a criminal investigation, working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. There's nothing more corrupt than an investigation that is in desperate search of a crime, but make no mistake, that is exactly what is happening here. The Attorney General of New York literally campaigned on prosecuting Donald Trump even before she knew anything about me. She said that if elected, she would use her office to look into every aspect of my real estate dealings. She swore that she would definitely sue me. She boasted on video that she would be, and I quote, a real pain in the ass. She declared, just wait until I'm in the Attorney General's office and I've got my eyes on Trump Tower. She's also promised that if elected, she would join with law enforcement and other attorney generals across the nation in removing this president from office. And that it's important that everyone understand that the days of Donald Trump are coming to an end. The Attorney General made these statements not after having had an opportunity to look at the facts, but before she was even elected, before she had even seen a shred of evidence. This is something that happens in failed third world countries, not the United States. If you can run for a prosecutor's office pledging to take out your enemies and be elected to that job by partisan voters who wish to enact political retribution, then we are no longer a free constitutional democracy. Likewise, the district attorney's office has been going after me for years based on a lying, discredited lowlife who has not listened or given any credibility by other prosecutorial offices and was sentenced to 3 years in prison for lying and other events unrelated to me. These investigations have also been going on for years with members and associates of the Trump organization being viciously attacked, harassed, and threatened. I actually know from experience, folks. I've been one of them. In order to say anything bad about the 45th President of the United States, this would include having to make up false stories, numerous documents all prepared by large and prestigious law and accounting firms have been examined, and many hours of testimony have been taken from many people, some of whom I haven't seen in years. These Democrat offices are consumed with this political and partisan witch hunt at a time when crime is up big in New York City. Shootings are up 97%. Murders are up 45%. A rate not seen in 40 years. Drugs and criminals are pouring into our country at a record number from our now unprotected southern border, and people are fleeing New York for other, much safer locations to live. But the district attorney and the attorney general possessed at an unprecedented level with destroying their political fortunes of Donald J. Trump and almost 75 million people who voted for him, by far the largest number ever received by a sitting president. This is what these investigations are all about. A continuation of the greatest political witch hunt in the history of the United States. Working in conjunction with Washington, these Democrats want to silence and cancel millions of voters because they don't want Trump to run again. And I think that's an important point, folks, because that's what this is really all about at this point. You don't drag something out without even actually doing anything for 5 years unless you have an end game, and that's likely it. But he continues, as people are being killed on the sidewalks of New York at an unprecedented rate, as drugs and crime of all kinds are flowing through New York City at record levels, with absolutely nothing being done about it, all they care about is taking down Trump. Our movement, which started with the great election win in 2016, is perhaps the biggest and most powerful in the history of our country. But the Democrats want to cancel the Make America Great Again movement, not by making America first, but making America last. No president has been treated the way I have. With all of the crime and corruption you read about and others, nothing happens. They only go after Donald Trump. After prosecutorial efforts, the likes of which no one has ever seen before, they failed to stop me in Washington. So they turned over to New York to do their dirty work. This is what I've been going through for years. It's a very sad and very dangerous tale for our country, but it is what it is, and we will overcome together. I have built a great company, employed thousands of people, and all I do is get unfairly attacked and abused by a corrupt political system.
The host of Candace on the Daily Wire, Candace Owens, along with Fox News contributor Leo 2.0 Terrell. Welcome back, both of you. Candace, this was something I pointed out for years on this program. Every 2 years, every 4 years, any conservative, any Republican, you're racist, sexist, misogynist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic. Now you can add transphobic. You want dirty air and water. And some Republican is going to take your grandma and grandpa in a wheelchair and throw them over a cliff in an advertisement. It's predictable. But now it's every issue. Your reaction?
It is every issue, and it's obviously just name calling, and it seems to me to be completely foolish and people are not awake to what the Democrat strategy is here. You know, they use people that are false prophets like LeBron James to propagate a lot of these lies, particularly the Black Lives Matter lie. That seems to be almost the biggest one. The race lie has been permeating throughout every element of culture. You have LeBron James, who lives amongst white people in a $100 million Bel Air mansion, who is protected by white people, protected by presumably undercover officers and things of that nature everywhere he goes, and to his games back and forth. There are police officers that are constantly surrounding him, and yet he puts out this lie. And the president is correct to call him. President Trump is correct to say that LeBron James himself is racist. Not only that, but he doesn't care about black people. If LeBron James cared about black people, he'd point to the truth. The truth is that if you care about black people, you have to talk about black on black crime. Upwards of 95% of black homicide victims are killed by other black people. What he actually cares about is just making sure that he himself is situated as a king, while the peasants beneath him, he calls himself the king, the peasants beneath him and that follow him all invest in this lie, destroy their own communities, and yes, kill each other, as would have been the circumstance if that police officer had not have intervened.
Every single weekend, and this goes back to the Biden-Obama years, Leo. I can come on this program every Monday and tell you how many people were shot in the city of Chicago. I could tell you how many people were shot and killed in the city of Chicago and a lot of other big cities. Every single weekend. Murder rates are skyrocketing all over the country. This defund the police, dismantle the police. It's not working. Why don't we ever hear the names of all the people shot every weekend? Why is it only a case that can be used politically? Why isn't we only hear about those lives?
It's very simple. It's all about power. And what you're describing is what has been going on in Democratic cities for years. Listen, they talk about racism. I'm a civil rights attorney. I know what systemic racism is. It does not exist in Chicago, in LA, in Baltimore. When the people running the show are black people, brown people, chief of police, they only play the white officer card against a black victim. Candace pointed out all the numbers, but they play the race game, and guess what? The Democrats drink that Kool-Aid. There is a disconnect, Sean, between the Democratic hierarchy that live like kings and they brainwash the Democratic voters who live like peasants. I want to make one other point. That white sign that you made reference to, that sign is very, very insulting. And basically, the extreme left has declared war on white Americans and white police officers, and the Democratic leadership will not say a word because they are in bed with the extreme left. That's what's going on in America. It happens not every 2 years or 4 years. It's going on 24/7, Sean Hannity.
All right.
What to expect from the Friends reunion. Grab the tissues because the Friends reunion trailer just dropped and the tears are flowing. HBO Max just dropped a full trailer for the special with actual footage of the cast reuniting on the set of the show, and it's somehow more emotional than we imagined.
It was an incredible time. We became best friends.
Yep, I'm gonna cry now.
The 2-minute trailer gives snippets of Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matthew Perry, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer reminiscing and exploring a recreation of the set while doing iconic scenes. They even replay everyone's favorite quiz game.
Rachel wrote Ross a letter and demanded he read it before they got back together. How many pages was that letter? 18 pages! 18 pages.
Front and back!
Front and back is correct!
Wait, go one more time!
They're doing a reading of the one where everybody finds out.
This is from the one where everyone finds out.
And they're hanging out with James Corden.
Were Ross and Rachel on a break?
Yes!
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 The cast is all hugging and kissing and crying, and it's a lot to handle. Aside from the friends we know and love and also Corden, the special will feature a ton of special guests, most of whom were on the show back in the day. That includes Maggie Wheeler, Reese Witherspoon, James Michael Tyler, and more. But wait, that's not all. The special will also feature David Beckham, Justin Bieber, BTS, James Corden, Cindy Crawford, Cara Delevingne, Kit Harington, and Malala Yousafzai. The Friends reunion premieres May 27th on HBO Max.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to stumble.
His game plan is to use his speed.
Well, we hope. Over here. Hello.
The Brewers came up with a hand. That's great.
Dennis Conner seized the helm of Trial Horse Liberty.
At Lords to look ahead at this first test.
And I'm sure he's very grateful.
His last best bullet. I'm going to probably stretch that a little bit.
How do the Wizards plan to defend him?
Okay, so there you see Dave Revson walking right behind me.
Dar nu s-au aruncat cu ele înspre teren sau înspre...
Well, I don't get the rain man comb.
Well, congratulations. Continue good sex in the Big East. Thank you, Jimmy.
Coming in, ready? Coming in 3. Out of here. Coming in 3.
In Mobile, Alabama for SportsCenter, Lou Palmer, ESPN.
Of course, 50 Cent here. I gotta go talk to Danica Patrick. Good to see you.
Come on, Ben, get your shit together. That's all you got? Get your stuff together, that's what I meant to say.
Take those 2 performances and even pounded on the truck he was in when he left the park last night.
So remember, if we sound stupid, it's not your television set. We are stupid.
Sullivan has reportedly suggested that Austin has no ligaments in his right knee.
Toskala with the enormous glove save, dying a second.
The team started slowly not picking up Portland's dribble penetration, that is.
Was just dripping and brimming with playoff, I can't remember the fucking word.
Well, Scott, congratulations again on the win here in Game 2. Now you head back home to San Jose, where hopefully you'll have sex.
Through the week, there has been a lot of interest in the Gold Suns, and the Gold Suns, and they are going to start favourites.
All right, the New Orleans Saints would like to talk.
Hi, that's going down. You're going down, Lauren. There you go.
Well, the UConn Huskies are the 2014 NAACP national champs.
This is the season that matters, and despite the fact that they've had such a tremendous amount of success during the regular season.